Is Wisconsin Badgers 2025 commit Zach Kinzinger the next Bronson Koenig?
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ryan Harris. Really appreciate the absolute heck out of you being here with us, being part of this community. Thank you. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. There's no better way to make every play more exciting than with the FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app right at FanDuel.com to get started. Today, we were talking about Zach Kinzinger scouting report. I was able to go see him live, a 2025 four-star composite basketball recruit, a big-time recruit nationally, top 100 player in the country. We're going to talk about what his coach had to say, and then some lineup thoughts for this basketball team, including a couple interesting questions that came our way. That's all today, Locked On Badgers. But first, let's talk about Zach Kinzinger. Okay, 6'3" shooting guard. Let's get the lay of the land. 6'3", about 190 pounds, De Pere, Wisconsin, four-star composite player. 93rd ranked player nationally in the country, number 3 player in the state of Wisconsin. This is a big-time recruit. This is a national recruit who's seen his stock soar. A couple names I've heard associated with him. People have said, feels like he can be a Bronson Koenig type. I've heard that. I've heard Brad Davidson type. I've heard Ben Bruss type. So those are 3 kind of very different players. And I actually think after watching him play, I'm going to get into the scouting report. I think if you kind of throw all those into a pot and pick out some of the better qualities, like if you mix them together, you do kind of get a Zach Kinzinger. Let's start here. Let's start scouting report. So I went to see him play against, I think it was Bayport. I forget, the Pirates. Yeah. So I went to see him play, went to see him live. Long drive, like much to my wife and my mother's chagrin, I drove back in a snowstorm and they wanted me to stay there. It was like 7 hours driving, but it was worth it because how often do you get to see an in-state 4-star shooting guard committed to the Badgers play? Really cool really cool gym. I loved it. I love high school ball. There's a vibe in high school basketball that's unlike just about any other sport. I love high school basketball. I wish I could watch more of it. But let's talk Kinzinger. Let's talk the game. I want to point out this is a 1-game scout. When I was coaching previously, my head coach always used to say you have to see a player at least 3 times to get a real type of feel. So this is a 1-game scout based on people I've talked to and some huddle film. So small sample size alert, absolutely. Let me start by saying I can absolutely see why this staff loves him. I can see why they really like him. Let's start with the frame. 6'2", 6'3", somewhere in that range, but well-built. Like physical, well-built, nicely cut athlete. Good size for that kind of combo guard spot. I'm not going to worry about his physicality at the Big Ten level. He's not great length for a 2 if you're going to try to play him there, but he's fine. He's 6'2", well-built, physical, strong, good-looking athlete. Offensively, really sound. That's one of the first things I wrote down. Great footwork, great feel for pacing. So when I talk about pacing, it means like he's doing things at his pace. He does a really good job of setting defenders up with a bit of a hesitation. Then he'll explode when he needs to. He changes his pace of play very, very well. Always on balance. Really, really impressive ability to square up to shoot quickly. A lot of people, a lot of young players, high school level, heck, college level, they're taking shots, they're off balance, they're fading to the left or the right, they're not getting squared up. Even on shots where he's kind of coming off a pin down, coming off a pick, he's able to catch it, square quickly, release. It's a quick release. There's range to his shot. The mechanics look great. I saw him on a bad shooting day. I'm going to be super real with y'all. This was not Kinzinger's like best moment in this game. He struggled with his shot, missed a lot of them in the first half, but the form looks great. I have no concerns about him shooting jumpers at the next level, about spacing the floor, about taking deep jumpers, quick shots. Off-ball movement for him is really, really impressive. He has a natural feel to basketball. He comes from a basketball family. Both of his older brothers are really, really good. He's just well-coached while also having a natural feel to the game. When you talk off-ball movement, right, there's kind of 2 main elements of it. There's players who are moving because they know what they have to do next in the scheme of the play, in the concept of the offense they're running. And then there's players who are just floating, knowing exactly where they need to be. If the ball is dribbled at them, they're falling to the corner. If it's dribbled away, they're rising to the wing. He's really good off ball, constant movement, but not wasted movement. He's going to get open shots. So for a shooter, that's a big deal, right? You can just watch him and he checks a lot of the intangible boxes, moves well without the ball. On balance, good footwork, plays with great pace, squares up his shot. There was no shots I watched him. I'm like, gosh, I don't really love that shot. Now he took a lot of shots, but he took a lot of shots because he's the alpha on his high school team. All of them felt like good shots within the scheme of what they were trying to accomplish and with what his skill set is. So I think it's a great feel there. Um, Ball handling, check. Left and right hand, both really tight. Quick ball handler, can get in the paint. Showed a lot of ability off a cross. Also had a really nice in and out with the right hand. Like he's a good ball handler, and he can get there with his left or his right into the paint. Good for work on the inside again. He had the ability to pivot, stop, jump, stop, pivot, get into the paint, square up, make a nice little bank shot. So just a really fundamental scorer that I think can do it at all three levels. Is going to be able to do it at all three levels. Passing ability, two really, really elite, nice outlet passes, defensive rebound, look up the court, outlet pass. Definitely flashed ability to be at least a secondary playmaker. I'm not sure if a true point guard, but definitely the type of guy who can create the pass, who can see open lanes, who will find the open shooter. Again, he understands basketball. I think the IQ is a big check for him. The biggest question I would have offensively, and again, it's a one-game scout. But in this game, he struggled finishing in the paint. It just is what it is. He got in there several times. Again, really strong ability to slash, and the jump shot sets that up. Teams are terrified of him shooting, so he uses that to his advantage, gets in the paint. He had a couple plays, got in the paint, and got swallowed up by some length and by some athletes. Now, he's 6'2", 6'3", so he's not a big guard in terms of size, and he's not an elite athlete. So that is going to be something to track at the next level. How is he going to finish in the paint? And that's really going to kind of drive, is his career arc, and I don't know the answer to that, by the way. One game scout, again, I am not qualified to say off one game he can or can't. It's just something he struggled with a little bit in this particular game. It's going to kind of, his ability to do that consistently is going to kind of drive the direction and the career arc of his offensive game. Is he going to be more of a shooter who is occasionally going to attack bad close-outs and get in the paint when the opportunity is there, or is he can be a true offensive engine that can get in the paint, score at the rim, but also drive opposing teams nuts with his ability to space the floor and shoot? I don't know the answer to that. I feel very confident in his ability to be a secondary, at least playmaker, his ability to handle the ball, his ability to shoot. Those things alone are carrying skill sets. So you can easily see why the staff really likes him. Defensively, it was good. Like I was impressed defensively. I'll tell you a couple things. He works really hard. The off-ball defense, he's communicating, he's pointing, he's midline, he's right there in help position. The ball gets skipped, hard closeout. Again, good size, like 6'2", 6'3", well-built. I think he's going to be a good defensive guard for the Badgers. Again, not an elite athlete. So there's going to be guys probably perimeter-wise that he might struggle with a little bit, but he's going to bring the energy. I think he's going to work hard. He's definitely going to understand the team concept of basketball just based on what I talked to with his coach, based on the fact that his family's a basketball family, based on what I saw today or saw the other day in his game. Really, really instinctual type of a player. Gets on the dirt or gets on the ground, like hits the floor, rotates over, moves well. I like him. I think defensively he's going to be just fine, and offensively he's going to shoot the lights out of the ball. So a really good player. Can definitely see why they like him. Let me see if I have any other notes here. Yeah. Okay. So here's the other one. Again, this is kind of a double-edged sword. Definitely has the ability to get in the paint. I think he can score around the rim. He's crafty, but at the next level, I don't know how easy that's going to be with his size. So just something that we'll have to track. All right, we're going to take a break here. Come back with Coach Winchester, which is Zach Kinzinger's high school head coach. Hear about Zach's game from the head coach himself and what he had to say about the relationship with the Badgers, kind of what position he might play best, and the defensive mindset that Zach is going to bring to Madison. That's coming up next, Locked On Badgers. First, a quick break for our friends of the show over at FanDuel. FanDuel, listen, Super Bowl 59 is here. We've talked about it. Two teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make this more exciting than head over to FanDuel, take advantage of their incredible offer. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, the coin toss, the MVP, whatever it is, FanDuel makes it easy to be betting on the game all game long, and you can adjust your bets as long as the game unfolds, and you can feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. Live betting feature allows you to stay involved no matter what happens, and the app is incredibly easy to navigate, which I've talked about. Plus, you can place a $5 bet and win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl. That's just icing on the cake. Download the app right at FanDuel.com to get started. Bet $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, the official partner of Super Bowl 59. Now let's come back off of this. Let's talk to Coach Winchester. So Coach Brian Winchester, the head coach for Zach Kinzinger over, and kind of hear what he had to say about Zach's game. Let me pull this up right here. Coach Brian Winchester, Zach Kinzinger's high school coach. Coach, I want to talk about just the jump you've seen in his game from last year to this year.
Well, I think he's continued to expand his skill set, utilizing ball screens. He's continued to become a better. He's always been a good ball handler, but he's a better ball handler. Continuing to work on his shooting ability. I think the thing that also has progressed during the season, from last year to this year, is just his defensive ability too. Obviously, he did a really good job on Amari Allen on Tuesday night, and that's Amari is a very, very good player, and our team, defense was good as well. But Zach was the main cog in that and did a great job on him. And so, from both ends of the floor, he's gotten a lot better. And I think Badger fans are going to be excited to see him play.
Well, talk to me about the defense too. That's sometimes hard for such an elite scorer to then embrace that role on the other end of the court.
Well, I think that's the thing that's going to allow him to play, earlier, whatever that means. He's not going to come in and have to learn everything about defense or have to learn how to be competitive on that end of the floor. Oftentimes, high school players who are scorers, aren't expected to guard. Just mentioned it. He was expected to guard Amari. He has to handle some of the scoring load for us and go on the other end of the floor and play really hard. And so he's got that competitive nature. And so that's going to fit very well. But he's also highly intelligent defensively. He understands ball screen coverages. He understands help assignments. And he'll fit in really well with how Wisconsin plays and what they expect at that end of the floor.
Talk to me about the competitiveness. Where does that come from him? Is that something he's developed? You guys as a culture developed? His family?
I think it starts with his family. I mean, the lineage he's got an older brother, Jake, who was a really good player here for us, defensive player of the year in the conference, graduated in 2020, I believe. Then obviously next to middle brother, Johnny, who's now at Illinois State. And so when you're Zach, and you're out in the driveway, I'm sure his dad, Jeff, can tell better stories about it, but he can just imagine how competitive that gets. And when you're trying to play catch up when you're 10, 11, 12 years old, if you're not competitive, you're going to get your butt kicked. And so I think it starts there. And obviously, Jeff and Krista, they've raised him to one, be a competitive player on the court, but be a really good person off the court as well. And so he just, from his own innate nature, being around his brothers and parents, and certainly our program is a competitive program. It's who he is at this point. He knows how to go and compete and compete for playing time, compete on both ends of the floor. He knows what it's all about.
So the buzz has been building for a little while. I mean, I think people saw the scoring ability pretty quickly in his career. But when did you realize, wow, this could be a 4-star player, top 200 type player in the country, high major player?
I don't know if you ever know that for sure, right? Like, he was a really good player all through his youth days. And so 7th, 8th grade, he's going to be a special player. Freshman year, he helps us get to the sectional final game. Sophomore year, we won a state championship, and he was an integral piece of that. And then I think the summer before his junior year, that spring AAU season, he really started to take off. And that's when all right, there's something special here. Coach Gard is really paying attention and gets the offer from Wisconsin and has continued to rise from there.
What position do you think fits him maybe best at the next level? I know that's a hard decision thing to ask, but where do you think he fits best?
I think he can play the point and he can play the two. I think, you hate to use the phrase combo guard because sometimes that means you can't do either, right. But he's definitely a very good passer. He utilizes ball screens well, and at the same time, he can flat shoot it. And so he can stretch defenses and he can get his own shot off the bounce. And so, from a position standpoint, I think it's what best fits the team. I think that's the other thing too, from a role standpoint. He's certainly been our best player or one of our best players, but he's not going to go in and have to make the adjustment of, I don't know how to be a role player. He's had to do that here before with his brother, with Will Hornseth, and so that makes it a little bit easier to fit in to a college system where you're no longer the best player or the guy. I think that makes it a lot easier to then fight for playing time and contribute earlier.
Certainly, some of the best teams, their best players are the best leaders, are among their best leaders. Talk to me about what is he like as a leader on the court?
I think his teammates respect him. He holds his teammates accountable. He allows his teammates to hold him accountable too. He's very coachable. If you ask him to do things and you ask him to communicate with his teammates, he's on top of it. And so he's a very vocal leader. He's a leader by example. He works as hard as anybody I've ever seen. And so all of those things are going to add up to being very successful.
Two more quick questions. Just finishing out this year, where do you guys see yourselves as you finish out this regular season heading into the States?
Right now, we're on a good path. We've played very well as of late. We're in the 7th game, I think, in 15 days. So we've got a little stretch going here. That's been against some really good teams, but I like where we're at. We're setting up, I think, very well for a tournament run. Our sectional is very tough, but we want to end. I want Zach's career to end in the Kohl Center, and hopefully smiling in the Kohl Center.
That'd be amazing. Last question here, just Greg Gard, the whole Badger staff. What has been some of the messaging back and forth? What have they been like in this recruitment, and how did they kind of get this locked down pretty easily?
I think for Zach, it was pretty easy. When he got the offer, he wanted to be a Badger. He grew up, his dad, as Badger fans. And so that, when the offer came, and it came pretty early, the summer before his junior year, I don't think it was a hard decision for him. Coach Gard did a great job, and I know the assistants have done a great job as well, Krabinoff and Sharif, I think, have done a great job, recruiting him as well. So.
Excellent. Well, good luck tonight, Coach. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
All right, let's jump back into this finish this. So great stuff there from Coach. And a couple things that he pointed out that I talked about in segment 1. IQ. He's going to fit in. He's going to play defense. He understands schemes, pick and roll coverage, off-ball defense, communicating. He understands roles. He's had to be the role guy. He's had to guard star defenders. And he can shoot the heck out of a ball. So, again, when you start talking about comps, I mentioned in segment 1, I think he's going to give you some of the shooting with the quick release and spacing ability of a Koenig. If you remember Koenig, it was just such a quick release. 1-2 dribble bang, 1-2 dribble bang. And he didn't need a ton of space. Whereas Davidson, Brad Davidson needed a little bit more space, a little bit more room. But I think he's going to give you maybe a bit of more of an all-around game than a Koenig. I think probably maybe a little bit better defender, a little more rugged defensively. I think he's going to give you maybe a little bit more of that floor game that Koenig did. So it's an interesting mix between those two. I don't know if he's ever going to be the pure kind of scorer as a senior that Koenig was, where Koenig was 14, 15 points a game. I'm not sure if Kinzinger gets there or not. So I think you kind of take some of Davison's game, Brad's game, and you take some of Koenig's game. It feels like that is the type of player that you're potentially going to get if Kinzinger hits his ceiling, right? If he is able to fulfill the promise that he has. This is a big-time recruit, right? The staff loves him. Good size, great shooter. Again, it fits with the theme. If you look at Greg Gard's recent players, what's the theme been? It's been shooting. For transfer portal, high school recruiting, it's been shooting, right? They've gone from a couple years ago where it was literally Johnny Davis and nobody could shoot around him to everybody can shoot. It's almost like if you don't shoot, we're not going to be interested in you at the University of Wisconsin. This is a plus shooter at the high school level. Deep range, again, quick release, off movement, off spacing, really good shooter. And I think he's going to give you a lot of those other elements of winning basketball. So I like it a lot. I think if we talk about ultimate ceiling, it's going to depend on how well he's able to finish at the rim, how well he's able to develop that part of his game. And if he unlocks that, we're talking about an all Big Ten type of player potentially. And if not, it's more of a spacing guy who can play defense. And then you're thinking more like a Ben Bruss type with a bigger frame. So really good player. It was awesome seeing him. I really appreciate Coach spending a couple minutes and talking about him to us as well. We're going to take a quick second there, come back and talk about, am I too hard on Nolan Winter? I got a comment in here, and I'm going to respond a little bit why I'm harder on Nolan Winter than maybe some other players. That's next. Locked On Badgers. Let's go take a quick break. All right, let's talk about this a little bit coming back out of the break. And again, thank you everybody for tuning in as always. Really appreciate you. So a couple basketball comments to finish up this basketball show. This one is from Steve on the YouTube page. He said, "Oh my gosh, stop. You constantly get on Winter for his mistake, and yet the senior Crowl makes mistakes, and he's just who he is. It's ridiculous. Be fair and expect more from Crowl." And then a couple exclamation points. First of all, Steve, appreciate the comment, man. As always, this is always a place where every comment comes up. As long as people are respectful, it's all good. Here's the difference for me. And I've said this a couple times, but when you say when I say Crowl is kind of who he is kind of who he is. And the things that people get upset with Crowl about, by more or less, are things he's not going to fix. He's just not. So getting upset about it is like getting upset about not enough rain in the desert. You can yell at the clouds all you want. It's not going to rain more. You can want Steven Crowl to Amari Stoudemire some finishes and tomahawk dunk on people, and it's not going to happen. With Winter, he has such a high ceiling that I'm asking more because I almost expect more from him eventually, right? He is a much higher ceiling. And there's times I've been on Crowl. I want to be clear. It's when he didn't have a rebound against Illinois, we talked about it. We said, that's not good enough. How is that possible? Greg Gard talked about it. So I'll get on him. But if he has a 9-8 game, and I talked about him a little bit coming off this last game against Iowa, where I didn't think he or Winter were very good, right? So I thought both of them struggled a little bit. I'll talk about it. But you're not going to get suddenly an athletic rim defending big. So it's just not who Steven Crowl is. But what you are going to get is a good passer who plays good positional defense, is durable, can stretch the floor. There's a lot that you can get from Crowl. And I think the frustration for me is people focus so much on the things that he can't do or doesn't do. They lose sight of everything that he does. If Crowl entered the portal tomorrow, there'll be 200 teams that want him. I'm telling you right now, it's going to be hard to replace Steven Crowl. People can be frustrated. People call me crazy. I've heard, I'm telling you right now, it's going to be hard to replace Steven Crowl. The things he does offensively and just the durability. Having a center that plays 30-plus games a year and 20 to 30 minutes every single night, durability, availability is a skill, and that should be recognized. In terms of Winter, I just expect so much from him. You're right, I am harder on him because I think his ceiling is John Lure, whereas I think Steven Crowl's ceiling isn't that. I think Winter has to. There's a couple games plays in today's game against Iowa where little drop passes and he just fumbled it. He's better than that. And I think it's okay to be hard on somebody when you think he has a huge ceiling and you think he's capable of really good things. But I hear you. Maybe I am. Maybe I am too hard on Winter, not hard enough on Crowl. And that could be a fair point too. I wouldn't argue that. McGee, this is from Rain Joe. He said, McGee off the bench works. Don't mess with success. Yeah, this is in response to a comment about McGee should start or, maybe Klesman comes off the bench. I agree with McGee off the bench. I said it on today's show. I don't think you mess with it because it creates a narrative. It's the same reason after the Illinois game, Rajiv and I were talking about, should you bench Crowl? I'm like, no. You don't bench him because it just creates this other narrative. You just alter playing time if that's what it comes to. Same with McGee. I think McGee should play a little bit more. But I still started Klesman. And Klesman, I still want Klesman playing 20, 25 minutes. And if he's on a heater, even more. I just think McGee's been so good and so impactful that you have to give him a couple more minutes. You have to find. It doesn't all have to be at the expense of Klesman either. There's games Blackwell hasn't played great. So take a few Blackwell minutes and give him to McGee. Again, the guy's shooting 55% from three. He's making hustle plays. He's your best on-ball defender. He's your best pick-and-roll screen defender, the navigator. He gets around those screens really well. And he just provides so much energy and efficiency on the court. I think you do need to play him a little bit more. But the counterpoint here is Prine. He said, I'm in the minority. I like Kamari's usage level. And against some teams, I'd like to see a one big lineup with Max, Tanjay, Blackwell, and Cam. Really put the opposing defense in a blender. Prine, great comment, man. Let me hit this on two fronts. So let's start with the first one. I'm in the minority. I like Kamari's usage level. I think it's fair. Again, I think he should play a little bit more, but you could certainly make the argument that Kamari McGee, not the biggest guy. If you put him out there more, maybe teams start to pick on him a little bit in the pick and roll, try to get him into a switch situation and then punish his size. We have seen teams attack him with bigger guards. So certainly there's an argument to be made. The longer he's on the court, maybe defensively, it's going to cause a few more issues with bigger guards, posting him up, attacking him in the paint, driving him, shooting over him. That's certainly something to monitor. And then efficiency-wise, certainly if you play more, there's a risk your efficiency goes down. So I think it's a fair point. I kind of go on the other side. And like Prine says, Prine's in the minority probably, but I think it's a good point he brings up. But I kind of go on the other side, and it's more of he's playing so efficient. I want to see what it looks like with a few more minutes because the efficiency could go down, or he could keep just balling out. And instead of balling out, shooting 55% for 20, 22 minutes a game, whatever it is, maybe do that for 30 minutes a game, 28 minutes a game. His second point I love because I've wanted this for such a long time. I would love a 3-minute stretch of going small and having a lineup of Kamari McGee, Klesman, Tanjay, Blackwell, and Gilmore. Or Kamari McGee, Klesmit, Blackwell, Tonje, and Amos. Like, I think that team could put some people in the blender. I think against certain bigs, and even a game like today, Iowa, where Owen or Freeman's out, Gilmore at the 5 is okay for a few minutes, and you would create so many issues for other teams with that athleticism, that spacing, that shooting. Every single one of those players can shoot, drive, pass, plays hard, can play make, can like. It would be a really fun lineup to see, and I would love to see Gard go small a little bit here and there. But again, like he just won a road game by 10 on the road, so or a Big Ten road game by 10. So he's doing just Gard is doing just fine as his rotations. I would occasionally like to see a small ball lineup with all these guards, and then your big is Gilmore, or Gilmore's actually the kind of one I want to see because I think you would put teams in a whole bunch of chaos, and as Prine said, you'd put them in a blender. All right, we're gonna wrap it there. Really do appreciate all of y'all on Wisconsin. Big win today. And when you're done, you go check out Locked On Big Ten. All the newest stories from the conference realignment, NIL, all over there on the Locked On Big Ten channel on Wisconsin. And we will talk later.